Hi, my name is Gary Ann. This is not an easy video for me. For a long time, I stayed quiet, not because I had nothing to say, but because I was trying to survive, trying to understand what happened, and trying to rebuild myself after years of emotional and psychological abuse. I was married for roughly 10 years. For 8 of those 10 years, my husband was active duty military. He was a Marine. And even though he was never deployed during our marriage, military life still shaped so much of our marriage, our home, and my life as a mother. We moved often, and every move meant starting over. New home, new routine, new people, new schools, new doctors, new support systems, new loneliness. Being a military wife with a child can be incredibly isolating. You're expected to be strong, flexible, supportive, and understanding. You learn to pack up your life and make a new place feel like home, even when you're exhausted inside. And when you're also dealing with emotional and psychological abuse behind closed doors, that isolation becomes even heavier. Because people see the uniform, they see the service, they see the outside image, but they do not always see what is happening inside the home. During that marriage, I was not only trying to protect myself, I was also trying to protect my daughter. And that is one of the hardest parts of this story. Because when you're a mother, you don't just ask, what is happening to me? You ask, how is this affecting my child? You ask, what is she seeing? What is she learning about love, safety, conflict, and self-worth? You ask, am I protecting her enough? And those questions can keep you awake at night. My ex-husband struggled deeply with trauma, untreated PTSD, and behaviors that affected our marriage, our home, and my daughter in ways I did not fully understand at the time. I want to be careful with how I speak about this, because this channel is not about attacking veterans or anyone in the military. It is not about shaming people who serve. It is not about saying that PTSD automatically makes someone abusive, because it doesn't. There are many veterans and active duty service members who live with trauma and still choose healing, accountability, therapy, and love. But in my marriage, untreated trauma, control, manipulation, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, ego, betrayal, and infidelity became part of my daily routine. And for 10 years, I lived inside a relationship where I kept questioning myself. Was I being too sensitive? Was I overacting? Was this normal? Was this my fault? Could I love him enough to help him? Could I be patient enough? Could I be quieter, softer, better, more understanding? And as a mother, I also kept wondering, how do I hold everything together? How do I keep my daughter safe emotionally? How do I make the home feel normal when nothing about it feels normal? The painful truth is this: no amount of love can heal someone who refuses help. No amount of loyalty can fix someone who refuses help. No amount of patience makes abuse acceptable. For years, I minimized what I was going through because I knew what he had been through. I knew he had served. I knew military life was stressful. I knew there were things he carried. And because of that, I made excuses for behavior that was destroying me. I told myself, he's hurting. He doesn't mean it. This is just the PTSD. Marriage is hard. Military marriages are hard. They're different. But there is a difference between supporting someone who is wounded and losing yourself inside someone else's wounds. There is a difference between compassion and self-abandonment. There is a difference between trauma and abuse. And I had to learn that the hard way. During my marriage, I experienced emotional and psychological and verbal abuse that slowly changed the way I saw myself. I would look in the mirror and hate the person that I became. It did not happen all at once. That is part of what this whole thing makes it so confusing. At first, you explain things away. Then you start walking on eggshells. Then you start sharing how you feel because it always turns into a fight. Then you stop trusting your own memory. Then you apologize just to keep the peace. Then you become smaller. And one day you realize that you are not living anymore. You're managing someone else's moods. You're trying to prevent explosions. You're trying to predict what version of them will come home. You're trying to survive the relationship you once thought would be your safe place. There was also ego, a kind of pride that made accountability almost impossible. When someone cannot admit they are wrong, when every conversation becomes about protecting their image, when being right matters more than repairing the relationship, you slowly learn that your feelings are not safe there. You learn that your pain will be debated, your memory will be challenged, your reactions will be criticized, your hurt will be turned into the problem. And that kind of ego can make healing inside the relationship impossible because repair requires humility. Repair requires honesty, it requires accountability, and I did not have that. There was also infidelity. This is another part of my story. Infidelity does not just break trust. It breaks your sense of reality. It makes you question your worth. It makes you wonder what was real. It makes you compare yourself to people you never should have had to compete with. And when infidelity is mixed with emotional abuse, denial, manipulation, ego, and blame, the wound becomes even deeper. Because you're not only grieving betrayal, you're also being made question whether you have the right to be hurt. For a long time, I carried shame that was never mine to carry. I spent too much time wondering why I was not enough, when the truth was, someone else's betrayal was never proof of my lack of worth. It was proof of their choices, their lack of accountability, their refusal to protect what they promised to honor. And when you have a child, survival becomes even more complicated because you're trying to stay calm for them, trying to shield them, trying to explain what should have never needed explaining, trying to create peace in a home that keeps losing it, trying to be strong when you're quietly breaking inside. When you're a military wife, especially one who moves often, it can feel like you're constantly rebuilding life on top of instability. You leave behind people who might have noticed. You leave behind routines that felt familiar. You leave behind support systems before they even form. You learn to smile in new places. You learn to introduce yourself again. but inside you may be completely alone. You learn to act like everything is fine because you're supposed to be resilient. That was one of the hardest parts for me. The person who was supposed to protect my heart became the person that I had to protect myself from. And the home that was supposed to feel safe became a place where I was constantly measuring the mood in the room. For a long time, I did not have the words for it. I did not know how to explain emotional abuse. There were no bruises I could point to. There were no obvious marks, but there were wounds. There were wounds in my confidence. There were wounds in my nervous system. There were wounds in my ability to trust. Wounds in my ability to speak up. Wounds in the way that I saw love. Wounds from betrayal. Wounds from being blamed. Wounds from having my reality questioned. And there were wounds in the way I worried about my daughter was absorbing. Because children feel things, even when we think we are hiding it. They feel tension. They feel silence. They feel fear. They feel when a home is not emotionally safe. And as a mother, that realization was devastating. One of the reasons why I'm starting this channel is because I know there are women and men who are living inside relationships like this right now. Some of them are military spouses. Some of them are parents. Some of them are moving from place to place, trying to make everything look stable while quietly falling apart. They may be sitting in their car before going inside the house, taking a deep breath because they do not know what mood they are about to walk into. They may be rereading text messages, trying to figure out what they did wrong. They may be apologizing for things they did not do. They may be defending someone publicly who is breaking them privately. They may be trying to forgive betrayal they never got real accountability for. They may be telling everyone we're fine while quietly losing themselves. And some of them may be looking at their child and thinking, I do not want this to become their example of love. If that is you, I want you to know this. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not hard to love. You're not failing because you're struggling. You're not less worthy because someone betrayed you. You're not responsible for carrying someone else's untreated pain at the cost of your own soul. I stayed for many reasons. I stayed because I loved him. I stayed because I believed in marriage. I stayed because I thought things could get better. I stayed because I saw the wounded parts of him and thought if I could just reach those parts, maybe everything could change. I stayed because I was confused. I stayed because I was trauma bonded. I stayed because I was exhausted. I stayed because we had built a life together. I stayed because military life had already taught me to adapt, endure, and keep going. I stayed because leaving is not as simple as people think. I stayed because I wanted my daughter to have stability. Especially when you're a mother. People often ask, why didn't you just leave? But unless you have lived through emotional and psychological abuse, you may not understand how complicated that question is. Abuse changes your reality, makes you doubt yourself, makes you feel responsible for the other person's emotions. It makes you afraid of what will happen when you leave. It makes you believe maybe the good moments mean the bad moments were not that bad. And when infidelity is part of the story, it can make you question yourself even more. You wonder what you missed. You wonder whether the love was even real. You wonder how someone could hurt you and still expect you to carry the relationship. And when there's a child involved, you're not only thinking about your own heart, you're thinking about stability, safety, the future, the emotional impact, the practical consequences, the fear of making the wrong decisions, the fear of staying too long, the fear of leaving and not knowing what comes next. It is not simple. And when the person hurting you also has trauma, it becomes even more confusing. You start confusing empathy with obligation. You start confusing loyalty with silence. You start confusing forgiveness with permission. You start confusing commitment to self-abandonment. But forgiveness does not mean staying in harm. Compassion does not mean accepting cruelty. Commitment does not mean tolerating betrayal. And someone's trauma may explain their behavior, but it does not excuse their abuse. That sentence changed my life. Trauma may explain behavior. It does not excuse abuse. I want to say this very clearly. Military service can change a person. PTSD is real. The mental health struggles service members and veterans face are real. And many people come out of military service needing therapy, support, structure, and healing they never receive. But when someone refuses to get help, refuses accountability, refuses treatment, and continues hurting the people closest to them, the damage spreads. The spouse carries it, the family carries it, the home carries it, and children can carry pieces of it too. For most of our relationship, military life shaped our home. The stress, the structure, the emotional distance, the constant changes, and the untreated trauma did not stay outside the front door. It came home. And because he never received the post-military psychotherapy and support he needed, the damage kept spreading through our marriage and our family. But I also had to learn something important. That his healing was not my responsibility. His choices were not my fault. His betrayal was not a reflection of my worth. His ego was not something I could love into humility. And his refusal to get help did not mean I had to keep sacrificing myself. That is one of the reasons healing became so important to me. Because I do not just want to heal for myself. I want to heal for my daughter. I want her to see that love should feel safe. I want her to know that peace matters. I want her to understand that her voice matters. I want her to grow up knowing that she does not have to disappear to be loved. I want her to know that compassion is beautiful, but self-abandonment is not love. I want her to know that loyalty should never repair or require losing herself. And I want her to know that someone else's inability to value you does not determine your value. For 10 years, I tried to be understanding. I tried to be patient. I tried to love harder. I tried to forgive. I tried to hold the family together. I tried to make every new place feel like home. But love without safety is not love. Love without respect is not love. Love without honesty is not love. And love without accountability becomes survival. And I do not want to survive anymore. I want to heal. I want to tell the truth. I want to help other people feel less alone. And that is why I'm starting this channel. This first video is not telling about every detail because there's so much more. It is not about revenge. It's not about exposing someone. It's about reclaiming my voice. For years, my story lived inside me like a secret. And now I'm learning that my voice matters. My pain matters. My healing matters. And my daughter deserves to see me become whole again. And maybe by telling the truth about what I lived through, someone else will find the courage to name what they are living through too. On this channel, I want to talk about emotional abuse, psychological abuse, trauma bonds, narcissistic abuse patterns, military spouse isolation, infidelity, betrayal, life after divorce, rebuilding your confidence, learning to trust yourself again, parenting through healing, and what it means to rebuild a life after someone you loved hurt you. I am not a therapist. I am in grad school to become one. I'm not here to diagnose anyone. I'm here as someone who lived through it, someone who stayed too long, someone who lost herself, someone who was betrayed, someone who kept trying to make peace in a home that did not feel peaceful, someone who's finally finding her way back, someone who was a military wife, someone who is a mother, and someone who wants her daughter to see that healing is possible. If you are watching this and you're still in it, please hear me. You do not have to have all the answers today. You do not have to be ready to tell your story. You do not have to make a huge decision this second. But please start telling yourself the truth. Start writing things down. Start trusting the feeling in your body. Start talking to someone safe. Start learning what emotional abuse looks like. Start asking yourself, do I feel safe being myself in this relationship? Start asking, am I being loved or am I being managed? Start asking, is this relationship helping me become whole? Or is it teaching me to disappear? And if you have children, start asking, what are they learning from this? What do I want them to believe love looks like? What kind of peace do I want to model for them? Because love should not require you to disappear. Love should not require you to constantly defend your reality. Love should not make you be afraid to speak. Love should not make you feel smaller every year. Love should not make you compete for basic respect. Love should not turn betrayal into your shame. For a long time, I thought surviving meant staying strong inside the marriage. Now I understand that surviving also meant leaving the version of me who I believed I deserved that kind of treatment. I am still healing. I still have hard days. I still have memories that come back. I still have moments when I question myself. But I am not where I was. And that matters. Healing is not instant. It is not pretty all the time. It is not a straight line, but it is possible. And I want this channel to become a place where we talk honestly about what happened, what it costs, how it affected us, how it affected our families, and how we rebuild after. So if my story connects with you, I invite you to subscribe, not because I have everything figured out, but because I'm choosing to heal out loud. For myself, for my daughter, and maybe for someone watching who needs to believe peace is still possible. Thank you for listening to my first video, and thank you again for giving me space. And if no one has told you this today, you are not crazy, you're not alone, you're not less worthy because someone betrayed you. You're allowed to choose peace, and your children deserve to see you whole. Thank you for listening.